So Charlotte, over to you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Dr. Klinam, and thanks for everyone. Welcome to this session of 2022, another webinar. Those who don't know me, this is how I look like. So I don't know whether you actually can see me from here.
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, this is Charlotte. My name is Charlotte Mosimane. I am the senior faculty officer in the Faculty of Engineering and the Built Environment. Okay, I will be sharing some information with you on postgrad, starting from PGD to honors and the types of MSCs that we have and the PhDs. All right, so I'll switch off my camera for now. So we'll go through the different types of degrees. Okay, so in the previous webinar that we had, like Desmond has explained, that when we started this session, I think last year, we mainly were focusing on MSCs and PhDs. However, we excluded the PGDips and the honors degrees. So this year they actually requested that I share the whole of the postgrad qualifications, in a sense of making you aware what is available for you out there. All right, so I will start with the programs that we offer in engineering, in built environment and engineering. All right, so just give me 1 sec. So I will be sharing my screen. Let me know if you see my screen, guys.
Yes, we can see it. Go for it.
Okay, this is it's just smaller. It's just a workflow of what we do at the faculty in a nutshell, right? So normally when you start a degree, you obviously, which is a norm, that you have to be a registered student, right? So in each and every degree, you must be registered. So in a PGDiP and honors, there isn't much to actually tell there, because the PGDiP is regarded as equivalent to the professional degrees in undergrad, because those students who are doing PGDiPs, especially in engineering, they are equivalent to some fourth-year courses. Unlike in built environment, they have only one professional degree there, but most of their undergrad degrees are only bachelors. So they are, when they qualify with their bachelors, they are actually allowed to do PGDiPs, or they can venture into their honors degrees. All right. So PGDiP, it's a new version of the old GDE in engineering. A lot of degrees have been phased out. So we have actually new degrees that we have, right? So the PGDiP consists of 6 courses. Each course is amount to 20 credit points. So meaning that when you qualify with PGDiP, you have to have the total credits of 120 in order to qualify, right? So you only have 220 credit courses. It depends in different schools. How are they teaching it, in block release or in a timetable manner or whatsoever? But at the end of the day, we would want the full set of results when we have our BOEs at the end of the year. So with honors, In honors, they have a research as well. So honors are mainly available in built environment, where you do an honors in architecture, URP, construction, and quantity surveying. So those honors, they do have a research report as well. So in built environment, specifically in honors in construction and quantity survey, you might have noticed that there are similar courses in those honors degrees, but you only allowed to get credit only 50% towards another honors. If we have built environment attendees here, they must ask a question if they need to know more about these honors, right? So you only allowed to move 50 credits towards the other one, because how you find some students, they will be registered one honors, they will complete it maybe in 2021 and register another honors, maybe quantity survey next year they register for construction. But we do give credits where they are identical courses, but you are only allowed to move only 50 credits. Any questions? Can I proceed? I'll take the silence as yes. All right. Now, I'm gonna move to MH Profs. MH Prof, it's a new degree as well. It's a total of 180 credit course degree. I mean to say, when you qualify with this degree, you need to have 180, and the courses that you need to do in MH Prof, especially in engineering, you have to do 4 coursework and 1 research methodology, which is a 10 or a 15 credit points, or a 45. A 45 is a research report. So you need to have those complementary credits in order to qualify with MH Prof, right? So the next degree is a 50-50. It's also 180, which has changed from 240 to 180. So in this new 50-50, you do 4 coursework, right? And then you do research methodology, and you do a 90 credit research report. It's a 90, it's a 10, and you do 4 courses as well. So that when you calculate them, it becomes 180. So in built environment, they have so many MSCs. MSCs in built environment, they differ. They are not the same as the ones in engineering. For instance, in architecture, they have 3 types of MArcs. So where some of the degree, they do only 4 courses, but each course has a credit of over 24 or 36 credits. So their masters are different in architecture. And then you have other different MSCs in constructions as well, where some of them are 150 and some of them are 180. So they also, all their masters, they also require research methodology, especially in construction. So in architecture, it's a different ball game there. They have their own architecture courses. They don't do research methodology and all that, but they do research, right? And then we have identical MSCs, either it's in engineering and built environment, where you only do full dissertation. There's no coursework there. So all those masters in built environment, you only do your writing up. So those degrees also is 100, and they change from 240 to 180. So similar to PhDs, PhDs are the same. PhDs has never changed. They stayed at 360. So PhD has never changed. It remains 360 across the board. So you only do your writing ups there. Any questions in these degrees that I have explained?
Yes, I think I have a question. Good day to everyone in New Charlotte specifically. My question is based on the last session. I think I had some student asking questions of moving from MH to MSc. Are there any reasons maybe you can give or assist someone doing postgraduate diploma in understanding the course of such?
Okay. PGDIP, like I said in the beginning, it is more regarded as an honors degree, right? Because if you can see the courses in PGDIP, they start with 50 something. They are not like the MSC's one that starts with 70 something, if you can check those. So the requirement is that if you are registered for a PGDIP, you are not allowed to fail anything in PGDIP. Those 6 courses, they actually give you an opportunity to do any MSc. Once you fail in a PGDIP, chances are you're not going to be accepted in any MSc, whether it's coursework, whether it's full research. All right. Now, if you want to change from MH Prof into a 50-50, right? Remember, when you want to transfer, because these 2 degrees are in the same career, right? If I say same career, they both have coursework. So if you want to move to, let's say, from an MH Prof to a 50-50, you need to submit an application for the following year in order for your school to recognize you that you actually want to move from MH Prof into 50-50. When you move across, you must move with at least 50% of the credits into the next degree. The new degree that you would be accepted in, you must qualify with that 50%, vice versa. Did I answer your question?
Yes, I think so. However, I just wanted to clearly understand what makes students to move from MH to MSc.
Like I explained, if you listen to my explanation into these degrees, they have different weight of research. The other one is a 45, the other one is a 90.
Okay, I think
Can I just add one thing to it? I think one thing is that sometimes a student would start with MH and then maybe looking at when they are the research phase and they realize that, oh, this is something that the person can. So it's also one based on an advice from a supervisor and says, look, with what you are doing, I think that with the depth of research that you're doing, it would be good to be able to take this to an MSc 50-50. So sometimes it's dependent on the nature of the course that you're doing. So for instance, there are people who are doing masters by dissertation, and when the result looks very good, they are advised to actually say, why don't you now go take this and convert it to a PhD? So there are those things that is actually driven by the nature of the work that you are doing. But this depends, or it's on need to need basis, and it is driven by the discussion perhaps you might be having with your professor or yourself, or it's also generally a student who started, say, I want to do MNH and then realized that, okay, I can convert this to an MSc, and then it is done. So it's actually, it's not one fits all, and it's dependent on the student and probably the supervisor, and then the advice they get from their head of school.
And subject to availability of supervision as well.
Exactly. Thanks a lot.
okay, thank you.
Can I move on? Okay. Now, let's move on to our number 3. So, we are going to talk about amendments. So, when you are doing your, when you are studying your MScs, especially the masters, right? We have Sometimes when students, they submit their proposals at the beginning, but when they start writing up, maybe they're in some almost to the end of their chapters, then they would feel like maybe like the supervisors would say, oh, your title needs to change from this to that. So there are also forms that you need to complete for a title change, so that you can inform us once your proposal has been achieved by the faculty that you are changing your title from this to something else. I don't know what would it be. So those titles are, you can change them before you actually submit your examination, and it must be captured then. So you change your titles. That is how you change your titles, only when your proposal has been achieved by the faculty. So during writing your proposal, you can change it at the school. It has not reached us as yet. So sometimes a proposal, you might have seen, some of you who have been in the system for a year, more than a year, that in 6 months you get a notification that you must submit your proposal. Proposal are actually a milestone. All the milestones has to be achieved within 6 months of your registration. It doesn't matter whether you are part-time or full-time, but your proposal must reach us within the 6 months. So we do grant extension of proposals, but you go through asking this extension through your supervisor, and it goes through your school, and it gets captured by us at the faculty level. The maximum that they can give you to extend a proposal, it could be 7 months to a year. For the following year, they won't allow you. All right, that will be rejected by the assistant dean. Then same as changing of supervisors. Some supervisors, they relocate. Some supervisors, by the time you do your proposal, maybe it's no longer in their expertise. Then you change the supervision, a person who's supervising you. So that those change of supervision, they actually happen at the school, but there is a form that you actually obtain at the school. They do have it where you change your title, your proposal, and your supervisors. They all happen in one form. So the form looks like something like this. But currently we are actually doing online things for postgrad, but it has not been put in online as yet, because they're still on the testing mode. So some of you might be familiar with this form, where you do extension of your proposal and your extension of submission, and the title that I've just mentioned, from what to what, changing of supervisors. The percentages are very important. Who is the principal, who is the co-supervisor, and you write your motivation there. Those who are doing coursework as well in the 50-50, those courses they want to drop, they want to add, those that have been taught in block release, and all these signatures must happen in the school before it reaches us. All right, this is an amendment form for postgrad. All right. So any questions? Okay, fine. No questions.
I have a question. Is there a limit on the time when amendments can be made, or is it at any time as you need to make a change?
Proposal, like I said, the minimum that it can be granted, it can be a year. From 6, 7, 8, 9, but not the committee won't exceed to 1 year. all right? But with a proposal, you can get an extension, but when you want to do an extension for a submission, you only grant it once. It's not granted twice.
Okay.
Can I continue?
And also, just to add, oh, go ahead.
Charlotte, yes, I got another question. Is during the research methodology course, we submit a research proposal. Is that the one that is submitted at the faculty, or we have to submit another proposal at the faculty?
Okay, the research methodology is taught in the school, right? They basically teach you how to write a proposal, if I'm getting my facts right? So everything that you do there, you submit it at the school, but your PG coordinator submits what the school committee has approved to us. And then you can see on your milestone that we already captured a title for you.
Oh, okay, yeah, I get it. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yes, I actually wanted to say that, guys, the idea is that the earlier you do your amendment and get all the signatures, your supervisors and the head of school, for it to be approved and sent to faculty, the better. Because some people wait, and then I was a corporate when I was doing my master's. I waited, and then I did not even knew that my title had actually changed. And then because there was a slight change there, I think there was an article that went in there like a day over there, and then it changed. So what then happened was that when I was about to submit my final thesis for dissertation for examination, I then realized that it has changed. And what that did was that it affected me for about 3 or 4 weeks, because when you submit things, it has to go through proper processes so that it can get accepted, captured, and then making sure that this is sent into your system and then tagged against your document within the faculty. So please, it is very important that if any amendment needs to happen, get the form, fill it in, and get it as early as possible to your postgraduate administrators in your schools. And make sure that you sometimes do a follow-up to make sure that it gets to the faculty, so that you don't come here and be blaming people at the faculty, because sometimes the challenge is with the school and not the faculty. Ma'am Charlotte, can you please continue?
Okay, thank you for that, Desmond. The fourth section here is examination for submission, right? This is where we get more challenges in the faculty, but now they actually became better the past 3 to 2 years now. Now, there's a process that you need to follow in order for you to submit for your research, your dissertation, and your thesis, right? So all three, the submission process is the same. It is the same. So you can see my first bullet is declaration to submit. Normally we call it intention to submit. So this form, normally you submit it 3 months before. Just a minute, just drag it here. Sorry, just want to drag it here. Okay. Just bear with me. So this is the form, right? The declaration of intention to submit, right? This form, we need to receive it 3 months before you submit. So you write your name, your student number, the master's degree, your school where you are, you add whether it's a research report, the dissertation or thesis, and your supervisors and their percentages there. And then as a student, you sign there. And then it has everything that whoever must sign, the co-supervisor and so on. And this gets submitted to us. This shows us as a faculty officers, whoever is a faculty officer in your respective schools, that actually this particular person, in 3 months, she or he will be ready to submit for examination, right? So so we actually note that, and then a file becomes opened for you, so that we must be aware that a lot of things now that we will require, they must be coming in. So the intention is 3 months, and then after that, you submit your NOEs. Normally, the students don't have to know who are their examiners. So this is an internal use. Your supervisor, your head of school, and your PG coordinator and administrator, they know what is this for. So it gets sent straight directly to us. You shouldn't know who are your examiners. So they complete it, we do the process, we send it to the committee to approve your examiners, and then we keep it there, right? By the time you submit your thesis or your research, everything is ready for you, right? So if these two documents, they don't reach us, they reach us together with your submission, please note that your submission will take a month in the faculty to get out. Are we clear? Right? So when you submit, you have the forms like where they call them the first submission forms, right? You have the first submission forms that you sign as a student, right? And you have the acquaintances form that your supervisor has to acquaintance your submission, right? And then it also has to come with a supervisor's report, right, which is compulsory for all supervisors to complete this. This gets into your file, and then we start working on your submission, sending it to examiners. All right. Examination of the duration is they say it's 6 weeks, right? 6 weeks depending on the examiner. Please bear in mind that when the examiner is being appointed, we appoint examiners based on their qualifications as well, based on where are they, different universities, whether it's Africa, local or international, all right? The examiner would have been approached a long time ago, 2 months ago, that would you be able to examine the student? This is the communication between the supervisor and the examiner. When the examiner agrees, they know that they are expecting to examine so and so, right? For some unforeseen circumstances, bear in mind that we wouldn't know what would happen to that examiner in 2 months, right? So we do send them a reminder that we will be sending this examination to you, and then they will respond to us that please bear in mind, yes, I agreed, but subsequently I have 6 or 7 examinations that I have to go through for different universities. You revert to your supervisor, we revert to them, said, oh, please note that this examiner that you have appointed has 7 examinations that he needs to go through. Are you still willing for this examiner to examine your student? If the examiner says, the supervisor says yes, it's yes. Please note that your examination will sit more than 3 to 6 months from that examiner. Are we clear? So normally the examination takes only 6 weeks. PhDs, they say 6 weeks, but in my working world, it's 3 months to 4 months. 4 months with a PhD. PhDs takes longer. Any questions in this submission process?
Hello.
Go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, thank you, Ma'am Charlotte. I wanted to ask you if, let's say, let's just say by November, you want to submit your thesis, and then you say, okay, your dissertation, and then you say, okay, you submit the intention to submit for next year, which means it's going to be taking 3 months for you to submit, right? So it will mean that next year you'll have to register, if I'm right. Will you register for the full year, or you do that? Because I had last time on our session, we were talking about the copyrights fee. So when you're going to register for next year, because already you've put in your intention to submit, and it probably 3 months, it's going to be in March. So when you submit your thesis, so will you be registering for the full year, or what happens there?
Okay, thank you for your question. If you are ready to submit for the following year, we will make a practical example of 2022, right? So let's say you were ready to submit in November 2021, right? There's something called awaiting examiner, where you don't incur full tuition fee. Every year you must submit by the end of February to not be charged fees. So an awaiting examiner, you can actually ask for an extension if you have never asked for an extension before, 6 weeks before the end of March. So that means you must ask your extension to be recognized as an awaiting examiner on the 31st of March, 6 weeks before the 31st. Like today is the 31st, right? We've been receiving submissions for those students who have requested for an extension who did not meet the deadline for the 28th of Feb. So if you did not register by tomorrow, we charge you full fee. Did I answer your question?
Okay, ma'am. So if I get this right, will you are going to just pay the copyright fees only, and then submit?
You pay the copyright fee when you meet the deadline, 28th of February. If you asked for an extension 6 weeks before the 31st, meaning today, if you submitted today, we will charge you 120 if you requested.
All right.
If you did not request, you will be charged full fee.
Okay. Thank you. I think I understand. Thank you, ma'am.
Any other question?
Hi. Yes, I just wanted to ask, when you're submitting for the first examination, do you still have to submit the 2 unbound copies, or has it changed now?
It has changed now due to COVID.
So does that, now that we're back at campus, does it still, so now we still submit the...
No, you don't submit a bound copy anymore. You submit electronically.
Okay, and also, do we have to submit a Turnitin report?
Turnitin report, no. For what? For PhD?
Yes.
There's a lot of discussion that is going around between, especially the PhDs, because when you submit your PhD, you actually have to have some, what do you call it, where you go to write these things. Desmond, help there.
Plagiarism.
No, not plagiarism. Remember when you submitted from all those students who submitted from 2014 to now, you have to submit a journal or what do you call this?
Conference proceedings.
Yes. So that even though it has not been approved, you have to submit it. So currently it's being discussed, but we still follow the same process till the dean decides otherwise, because I know currently it's in discussion whether a PhD must submit a journal or whatever papers he has written.
Okay, let me also, for the Turnitin report, Turnitin report, it is also in the student's best interest to actually do that. There have been instances where students, or we were dealing with a case, this is a good opportunity to tell you that we're dealing with a case where a student's master's thesis, which was sent out to be examined, happens to be a copied work from a professor that happens to be the one examining the work. In that instance, the student was at the verge of losing the entire thing until the committee sat down and says, this whole work should be rewritten. Now, the reason why this is very important for you on this score and when you are in this postgraduate thing, one, make sure that you do this due diligence to ensure that, I mean, as Charlotte talked about, the intention to submit. It's something that we were the university and the faculty has been a bit relaxed about it, but this is something that this year going forward we are going to make sure we put much emphasis on it, because this intention to submit, a lot of people don't do it. Hence, you don't give us that 3-month gap that allows us to put in the necessary structures to make sure that, for instance, if you're a master's, you will need 2 examiners, but you have to submit a minimum of 3. Their supervisor will have to submit a minimum of 3 for the faculty to actually contact them and say, will you be willing to do this? And for a PhD, you need to have 3 examiners, but they submit 5 so that we can reach out to them. Now, this is what happens where somebody submit a thesis somewhere last year, April, and the thesis has still not come back. One is that when your intention to submit form is not done, what then happens is that we don't have, you may have submitted, your supervisors might have submitted your examiners, nomination of examiners, maybe a week or 2. We've had instances where it was submitted a week and then the student went to submit. When you do that, you would have to keep your thesis under lock and key until we get confirmation from all these examiners. We are making these things known to you so that you can work together with your supervisor. You get to a point where you go to your supervisor and supervisor say, okay, this work is good enough. Then you have to submit. In an event that the supervisor says, I don't think this work is good enough, and then you'd have to have an extension, you will need that 1.5 months to say, look, I can submit by the end of Feb. Can you give me up until the end of March so that I can submit, so that I don't pay fees? So we are making you aware of these things so that you know that it is something that you and your supervisor needs to play this role. Remember, it is your PhD. Your supervisor is just a guide. It's just like a consultant. So if you don't take these things to your supervisor, and some of them know it, but I don't know, and I wouldn't sit here and say they deliberately do this. Your supervisor have the right intentions for you, but you would have to act on it to make sure that this becomes a reality. And this year we are making sure that if you are supposed to submit on time. Can I also say that a lot of people submit in December, but the chances are that when you submit in December, most of these examiners will say, look, I can receive it, but I'm only going to look at it when I come back. So if you submit in December, there is a greater chance that maybe they will just start attending to your work maybe in January. So you need to also have this in mind. And you should also be very, very strategic as to when you submit so that you can get the response that you have. May I also add that until all your examiner's report comes back to the faculty, we will not release it. And we don't release your examiner's report to you. We release it to your supervisor. And then your supervisor would now have to release that document to you. This is the process we follow. So a lot of people that come to faculty and come and be harassing faculty administrators, we want to make sure that you know these things so that you don't put unnecessary pressure on them. And also, we are saying this because your supervisors needs to make sure that they send the report or they nominate examiners that will do the work. We also have an instance last year where we have one examiner examining 3 different PhDs. Imagine what will happen to that thing. It will take a lot of time for you to have it. So once you have this, then you can have these things and your supervisors know this. But when you know this information, when you are engaging your supervisor, then you can be able to set realistic timelines and deadlines so that you can be able to meet them. I think that one thing I'll also say, so that I can hand over to Ma'am Charlotte, is that you have what is called your progress report. Your supervisors has progress report. So when you go to your online profile, when you go to your online, the VIT online system, where you can be able to your self-service, you will see that your progress report is always captured. Make sure that you fill in this progress report, and that will also give you an idea so that you and your supervisor, you can have that discussion. If he needs to find a way of maybe making sure that they get funding for you, or maybe get you a 6-month extension, then this can be done so that you are not caught by surprise, and then you may not be able to, because the current dean, I'm telling you this, the current dean is very strict with submissions. If masters is 2 years, it is 2 years. And may I also say that you know that when you're doing a master's, you would have to submit either 1 journal and 1 conference, and if you're doing a PhD, a minimum of 2 journal and then a conference paper. This is non-negotiable, and these are requirements, they are fulfillment. You have to meet this before you are allowed to submit, unless it is on extenuating circumstances where you are doing a work that is sponsored by an industry, where there is a letter or a non-disclosure agreement that says that the student is not allowed to publish this. And when that is done, then a particular instance is given where you can submit it without publishing. It is very, very important. I see a hand there. I think, Paros, can you ask your question, please? And Charlotte can take over.
Thanks, Desmond. I just have a question with regard to the time frames that you've just mentioned now. So you've said that the dean is really pushing to get the PhD and master's out in the right time. The problem comes in when you add to that journal papers, right? The journal papers themselves might take months before they are approved. So it might take months, well, it'll take you months to do the work. It'll take you a couple of weeks to write up, and then he's going to be sitting and waiting for acceptance at a journal. Now, if you're going to do 2 of that alone is going to take a year. And then to say that the PhD must be done in 3 years, the timelines don't add up. So that has to be looked at, because it's not going to be feasible. We're just going to be paying registration fees for another year or so extra, waiting to get the requirement of 2 journals before you can submit for examination. I think that has to be done. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that question. I'll quickly
Can
respond.
I answer that, Desmond?
Yes?
Yes.
Can I quickly respond so that before you speak?
Okay.
Or you want to ask the question?
No, it's fine. You can respond.
Okay. So what happens, that is why I'm saying that the thing that you need to do with your student as a student and your supervisor is to agree on the timelines. Because yes, there are room for extension. There are rooms for extension, but this would have to be motivated with you and your supervisor. And yes, I understand that some of those things delayed, but we are also looking at historical data where there have been people that have actually published work within that time frame. So you would have to agree. And some of the things that we suggest going forward, and in the webinar we talk about it, is, for instance, the very time you start with your PhD or your master's work, a best place to start is to look at your literature and see, is there an opportunity to write a review paper from there? And also some of the things that most of the schools are currently doing is to try and quickly get students to register and apply for conferences so that gets put into it. And sometimes when your PhD or master's gets submitted and is under review, these are captured in your dissertation that these are the papers that are actually under review. Some of these things, there have been concessions made, but I'm just putting it out there so that you know that the seriousness of the situation that you have. Mpo, can you ask your question?
Good afternoon, Desmond. I wanted to ask, is it possible that you can show the progress report that you are talking about on self-serving
because I don't know where to actually find one, so that maybe if you can see an example of how to fill it and all that, and that would be very grateful. And then another one is regarding you said masters. For masters, you need to do what and what? You have to release one conference paper and one journal.
That's right.
Yeah, so about what the other speaker was saying about the time frame, maybe I don't know. Can you maybe explain that part in terms of will you be able to submit? Yeah.
Thanks. I get it. With when you go to self-service, when you go, I think it's under research, you will see your progress, your research milestones. At every point, at every time, you would see that they say your supervisor's progress report. And also what happens is that an automatic email gets sent to you. And when that automatic email gets sent to you, then you need to work on that, and then your supervisor will submit one, and you also submit one. That is the thing. And so you have they say masters. Technically, a master's by full research, they were saying that a minimum of a year, and then maximum 2 years, but you can allow it to be given another year. So within that, I'm saying that the requirement is that you have to generate. You just don't submit a thesis, a dissertation. You will have to show that you have published. And this was, Charlotte, this was from 2013, am I right?
2014.
Sorry, 2014. This came into effect from 2014. And remember, guys, this thing was done based on historical data. And that is the thing, and that is why it is pegged like that. And for a PhD, you need to, so within that whole year, within that whole 2 years that you'll be doing your master's, right, you need to ask yourself, within that 2 years, it is expected that maybe in a year you should be able to generate something and publish it, and then that goes into the following year before you actually. And also, this is a conversation you should have with your supervisors. I've seen people in this faculty that did it by publications, and people had 2 publications done and 2 under review, and that was grounds for them for which to graduate. I am just pointing to you that for you to publish, it is a requirement, and then you have to tick that box before you get it done. So that is what you need to do. That is what I'm saying. Yes, Molefi, please go for your question. Otherwise, if Linda and then Daniel, in that order.
Yes, can you hear me?
Hear you.
Okay. My question is this. From what you said earlier, the comments you made, you said 1 conference paper and 2 article publications for the person to be ready to submit for examination. Please, why I'm asking this question is, from my school, what we are doing is 2 conference papers and 1 article publication. So please, I don't understand if that's what I know. That is what is happening in my school currently. So I don't know if it has changed or it just changed this minute, so that we all know. And let's.
Okay, Linda, I did say a minimum. A minimum. Are you doing a PhD?
Yes, PhD.
Yes. Which school is this?
It's a School of Construction Economics and Management.
Yes. Okay. I would just So the thing is, okay. Let me let Sis Charlotte speak to this so that you get it very clear.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Linda. No, none of the processes have changed. So your school has implemented new processes because of the head of school. I would urge you to speak to Ekinson, the PG coordinator for the entire school, if you are not getting any understanding, because it happens in the school and that can be escalated to us. What I know, everything is still the same. So if it's new implementations that are done in the school, we are not aware of them, please raise them with the PG coordinator that can be raised in the GSC committee of this engineering faculty.
And then,
All right.
Charlotte, let me quickly say this. For those of you in School of Construction, this thing came up where we spoke to Professor Sam Lai. One of the things that I've said is that, for instance, some of you you are doing 50-50, but your research work, you do it in the second year. And then the dean has tasked actually Sam Lai to look at it, to make sure that this is done so that some of you can do your research design in the first year, so that the second year you can be able to do your research. So this is also done. However, just make sure, I am just putting this information out there because it is a requirement. And if you don't meet it, it's going to be difficult for you to actually graduate. Very, very important. Molefi, can we take your questions?
In actual fact, I was in the meeting today with that school this morning. It's actually been, I have approved it. So students in that school will get a communique.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Yes, Molefi, can you ask your questions? Molefi, can you hear us? Okay, we go with Avuyile. Molefi, can you hear us?
This one, I was next to Molefi. I'm Daniel.
Daniel, go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, my question is regarding the publication you have just spoke about. Does it concern also the MSc 50-50, or it's only for full research?
No, MSc 50-50, that is a different ball game. And
okay.
Yes, that is it. But then it will be a plus for you if you actually do a publication. Because, and guys, let me also use this opportunity to explain the reason why if you do a publication is for your own good. One is that when you do a publication, the portion of your paper that you've published have already been peer reviewed. So that peer reviewed is a form of a mini examination. So some of those things quickly help you where the actual, and when they know that most of the work has actually been published, it gives you a much better way for your examiners to actually say, if this is what your community of practice is saying, then they look at your work in that eye. And if you've published and you have some citations out there, that is a good tool. So when you do publications, it's a form, or when you go for a conference, it's a form of a peer review which has been done, because the person that have been more familiar with your work is your supervisor. So there are little things that your supervisor probably might have missed. And when you do this whole publication, it's another way of somebody, an expert reviewer, looking at your work and says that, okay, this is worth it. Molefi, are you back? Otherwise, we go to Avuyile. Molefi. Yes, Avuyile, can you ask your question so that Ma'am Charlotte can finish off?
No, I have the same question as Daniel, so I'm answered.
Answered. Okay, great. Molefi, if okay, I see Molefi has taken down the hand. Does anyone have any more questions? Please, we need to point this out to you. For those of you who were in the webinar that we did, the open, we realized that our faculty, when it comes to publication, we are the lowest. And we don't match up. I think we have about, I show you the figure, we have 160 points against commerce law management that has about 250, against health sciences that have 520, against humanities that have about 500, against the faculty of science that has about 480. So, and if those people who are also students are able to do this, then it means that it is doable. It can be difficult, but it is doable. And if it is a matter of we deciding and having a strategic work plan that fits into all this. Like I'm saying to you, Ma'am Charlotte would attest to it, a lot of the masters by dissertation, people are doing it in a year. Yes, you are given 6 months to write your proposal, but you can actually try hard and say, can I do my proposal in 3 months? Some of the things we've realized that some of the professors take a long time to read your work. We are also trying to see how these professors can, the turnaround time from a professor to a student or supervisors to a student, they can speed it out. But this is some conversations that you would have to have with your supervisor, and you agree on timeline. If you agree on timeline with your supervisor, then it is quite good that you'll be able to do this thing in the shortest possible time. So please, We are just making you be aware of this so that you know. You don't want to get into a situation where after 2 years, they tell you that you are not be able to get your master's because you didn't finish on record time or you didn't meet all the requirements, therefore they can't give you your degree. It's very, very important you do this. Ma'am Charlotte, can you go on?
Okay, I'm still on submission stories. So once we receive your submission, it goes to the examiners to be examined, and then it comes back to us. Like Desmond said, we're not allowed to tell you anything. Then the reports are taken to your assistant, to the postgrad assistant dean to review both or three, both for MSCs or 3 reports for PhDs. And then for MSc, she gives us the outcome. The 50-50 has a mark. And now from 2021, those students who have submitted their full dissertation means no coursework. In the prior years, it used to have a pass, not a mark. But students who submitted from 2021, they all obtained marks for those PhDs for full dissertation in order to better their chances to apply for PhDs in other universities. Like UP, it's a requirement for any of our MSCs full dissertation, it must have a mark. So you could see some of the PhD, for some of the MSc full dissertation students who graduated in last year, they also from July, I think in December, they did have marks on their full dissertation. So this is how it's gonna be. Full dissertation will now have a mark, all right? Those MSCs that have no mark, maybe for prior years, please note you need to send that as a request because your files are no longer in the faculty. We have to request them from Solomon Mahlangu House where they found them, and then we asked, and it will take 3 to 6 months to get them. All right, so you need to be patient because this system has actually changed drastically altogether. All right, so yeah, that's why we're standing with the full dissertation marks. And then what happens as well, all students who have received their outcome letters, meaning that is an outcome from both examiners or 3 examiners that has been reviewed by the assistant dean. You get an outcome letter from, it will be sent by your faculty officer. The first one is minor corrections. If you have minor corrections, the other ones will be substantial amendments. Some will be substantial amendments and revision. Some will be substantial revision. Some will be re-examination. The worst one, it will be an outright reject, right? Now, those who have minor, substantial, extension and revision, right? They get given 3 months to submit their corrections in order to graduate, right? You will have those that have re-examination. They also get given 3 months to submit their re-examination and go out again to be re-examined. The difference between a minor correction, substantial, and revision, it means that you actually passed. You just have to do those corrections and you will be in the next grade. Let me explain again. When you submit, like let's say you submitted your research or maybe end of February or today, end of March or in between March, and you are expecting to graduate in April, you can't graduate in April. Always when you submit, target the second last graduation. Am I clear? Those who submitted in December, like Desmond has said that some of the examiners, they go on holiday, they only start reading your thesis or your whatever research by maybe end of January or February. you will already have missed the cutoff for grade. Grade starts 3 months prior to the date. Like April grade that I'm currently busy with, I've started it on the 5th of Jan already. So the cutoff for you guys to graduate was already on the 11th of Feb. So if you're submitting your final submission now, like now, you won't graduate now, you will graduate in July. Is it clear? So when you submit, don't say next graduation I will graduate, because you don't know what is your outcome of your dissertation. Maybe it's a re-examination, maybe it's an outright rejection. An outright rejection is when an examiner says you have failed. Then when you get an outright rejection for your MSc or your PhD, we call in a committee to discuss your fail, and the committee will decide whether they reappoint another examiner or your reports are actually not good enough, and so on. So the decision is taken in an ad hoc, and it can go on and on more than a year or two, trying to figure out whether have you failed and been taken to the mediator, or all of those people who would have been assigned to relook at the reports in the favor of a student. So outright rejection in a percentage, we can get like in a year, more than 10. It depends. And a lot of outright rejections are in an MSc, especially when students submit to meet the deadline of an awaiting examiner. That's where the huge percent we're getting of outright rejection. So you must meet the 3-month submission when you finish your corrections. If you are not submitting your corrections to graduate within 3 months, you are allowed to finish it in 6 months. However, we will charge you the full tuition fee for that year. If you fail to submit in the 6 months of your corrections, between the 3 months and the 6 months, you have to send in a motivation to request an extension from the GSC committee. It is not guaranteed that you will be given, but that is the process. But if you are not submitting within the 6 months, you will be FTC'd for 2 years, and that research that you will be writing, it's null and void anymore. You have to start afresh. So when you submit a re-examination, so if a re-examination is being requested by the internal examiner, when I say internal, I mean an examiner that is being appointed in the university, the vets, you will not be charged a re-examination fee. But if it's an external examiner who is requesting a re-examination, you will be charged. For 50-50 is 2,500, and for full dissertation is 4,800, and then for PhD is 6,120. You can actually see it in the fees booklet in page 14. So the amounts have been like this for past 3 years. They have not been changed. And then what next? And then when you submit your final corrections, then you need to submit your final submission form. Normally when you send out an outcome letter, it's accompanied by a final submission form, and your normally we send the outcome letter to a student and final submission forms. Then we send to the supervisor and the course supervisor, the head of school, whoever deals with postgrad in your school. We send them the same outcome letter. We send them the final submission forms. we send them your reports so that you can start doing your corrections with your school. When you send it back to us, we are actually looking for that PDF. Normally in the olden days, they used to submit a CD, but now because we are using technology now, you just attach your new corrections, list of corrections, the new corrections that you have done in your thesis, your abstract, and then the account list of corrections, the letter from the school confirming the corrections have been done, and then the 200 of an electronic, what is this, EDT. All right, then we put you in the next executive committee once you have submitted that. An executive committee in engineering is every month. So it's every month, every first week of the month. So if you missed that FESCO, faculty exec, to approve your degree, you will go to the next month FESCO. Do I make sense? Let's say we have FESCO next week. We already opened for WUSA student who submitted in after the 7th of March. So they're gonna go into that faculty exec. They're gonna approve them there. Is when you can get your requirements met letter. It takes a month now to get your letter. Am I clear? Once you do the faculty exec is approved, we qualify you immediately. We send you a requirements letter, and then you can be put into the next graduation base list. So all the graduation communication comes from graduation office, and then depending whether you office or not, that is not my domain. I'm only working with what I have given them. If they have removed you from the list because you owe labor fees, you have a legal hold, that is your problem to sort out in time. They all have deadlines, which is this April deadline was the 23rd. If you paid your fees after the 23rd, from 25, from the 31st, and you are phoning us that I should be in the grad list, unfortunately, you won't be in that list. You will fall into July. We are dealing with such huge ceremonies, and per ceremony it caters 330. Already now, students who are graduating now, including undergrads and postgrads, I'm working with almost 1,005 that are graduating now in April. So PhDs only graduate in July and December. They don't graduate in March. So that's the end of my session. Any questions?
And guys, please, I think that Ma'am Charlotte made a very valid point, and I want to emphasize that. Don't be in a hurry to submit your master's or PhD. If your supervisor say it is enough, go ahead. There have been instances where people submit their PhD without their supervisor, and their supervisors are invited to write why. And in that case, out of it, only 1% of the students that succeeded in getting their degrees passed, because your supervisor knows the people they are going to select to actually examine your work. And so that should count to something. So if you have a challenge with your supervisor, make sure that you get it addressed. You have to address it with your supervisor. If you are not getting the responses you need, please come talk to us, or make sure go to your head of school so that your head of school can see what they can do. If they can handle it, they will go to the assistant dean for postgraduate affairs. If that can be done, then it will be escalated to the dean. So please make sure that I tell people, your supervisor is like that marriage you don't want, and you have to endure till you finish. And that is why it's also practical that you select somebody that you feel that will give you value for your money. We are just here at the faculty to make sure that we give you a seamless process. And for us to be able to do our work, you as a person, you'd also have to do your work. It is very important that you do this so that you can graduate in record time. And it's also very important that you adhere to all the deadlines. If you don't, please, and make sure that if you have any fees, you make sure that you clear them. If you don't clear them and you clear them at the last minute, you will not make that graduation list. You would have to wait for the next round. Very important. I see a hand. Please go for it, sir.
Before I hand Desmond, there's one thing that I forgot. I think earlier there's one question that came up as well, where you were actually explaining some of the proposals are quite private, especially when you deal with ESCOM, like in electrical, or Mintech in chemical and so on, where they're still doing some research. Your final submission will not be published on YSpace because you need to have an agreement with the company and your supervisor that your work will not be published and can be put away for a couple of years. We call it embargo. So you can embargo your proposal, embargo your final submission so that it must not be seen by anyone. You can embargo it for 2 years. There's a contract that you sign with that company. You need to send it to us when you send in your proposal, including when you send in your first submission. So we can embargo to 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. When it expires, CRO does notify us that this embargo has expired. Please contact the school and the student and the company whether we can still extend the embargo. All right. So there are those. Yes,
thank you so much for pointing that one out. I mean, I'm a classical example. My thesis was embargoed. And let me also say this. Actually, my thesis went to court. It did that. It went to court because at the point, me, myself, I was negligent. There was a non-disclosure agreement between me and then the industry partners. I didn't know this. And when I submitted my thesis for examination, they actually wanted it revoked. So please, this is just to tell you that it is a serious business. If you are doing some work that has a proprietary implication, make sure that you tick all the boxes. Make sure that your supervisor is aware. Make sure that the university is aware through your school, because the faculty only receive things from the school. So it's very important you do this. So for instance, in my case, though I submitted my thesis on record time, I had to wait for 16 months for it to be litigated. You don't want to be in that position. It's not a good thing. And then you are there, you are not being given any funding, you can't do anything with your work. And after that, they said they have to embargo your thesis. You can't talk about it. It's under lock and key. But if you do things right, if you make sure that you do due diligence to your work, then things like this will not happen to you. I had to learn it the hard way. And we are sharing some of this experience with you so that you know that it is a good thing. And when you are at the right side of the university would provide legal support for you. In my case, that's what happened. Yes.
One last one. We just note, especially the MScs and the PhDs. This does charge you guys a lot of money. It's a lot of money to do this MSc, right? So if you are registered for an MSc, whether it's a 50-50 for dissertation, whatever, make sure that every year you are registered. It is important when you start your registration, you finish it how you started it. If you are going to have a gap year in between your 2 years or your 4 years of your PhD part-time, you must apply for an abeyance. An abeyance, you can take it you can take it for 2 years. You can split your 2 years. Some students, they become pregnant, they take 6 months. Now they will be left with 1 year, 6 months. Some, maybe they take in work maybe abroad, they want to put it on abeyance for 2 years, it's okay. But they cannot reapply after they have exceeded their 2 years. So this has to be done every year before the 31st of May. So if you have not done it in 2021, let's say, for argument's sake, let's say here we have students who have not registered for 2022. They must apply for an abeyance, meaning that you will not get the supervision for the whole year. You will not interact with anything in the university because you are away. But when you come back, you must tell us, you come with that, we issue out a letter that has granted you an abeyance. You bring it to the reception, we activate you. You don't have to apply. But if you went AWOL without saying anything and you come back, we're gonna charge you for those years right there, in order for you to be retrospectively registered where you ended. And that has to go to Carol Cross for approval. If not, you can't be registered, you can't qualify. That is very important.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Charlotte. You've done great justice to this. And I hope everybody on this call have actually learned something and have actually picked something. Hi, I see a question there. They said, is it possible to register MNG or MSc full-time while employed?
No.
There you go.
That's the reason why we have part-time and full-time.
Yep.
One last question.
Go for it.
Go for abeyances for a year or 2 years, doing a PhD of 4 years part-time. Does it mean that your time will be extended by 2 years?
I didn't get your question, you are breaking.
If you go for abeyance for a year or 2, does it mean your overall time to complete your degree will be extended?
Yes, it will be extended because you were not here for a year or 2.
Okay, thank you.
It will be extended by the number of years of abeyance. So if it's 2 years, it will be extended by 2 years.
All right.
So it's only 2 years, you can't exceed to 3 years.
Exactly.
It's either you break your 2 years into 6 months or into yearly. And if you have exceeded your 2 years, we will see in the system already that how many times you have applied for it. Then we can't grant you when you exceed 2 years.
Right, thank you.
Yeah. And just as a word to you, because of to all the people doing PhD here, recently we were applying for a grant, and then there was a question that said, how many years did it take you to do your PhD, and why did it take you so much years? And that is a question that is gradually crippling into people who want to do research or want to go into professional registration, where if you take too long to do your PhD, it becomes a question. I'm just pointing that one out to you. On this note, I want to thank you all for coming, and especially to thank our guest speaker for today. Charlotte, we thank you so much. And on behalf of the ADU, the director, and then the executive dean of our faculty, we thank you all. We thank you and your team for the great work that you guys are doing, and for also spending this afternoon with us. I mean, it's gone past your normal working time, but I know that when we call on you, you deliver. Can I also say that please take the trouble to know who is responsible for your faculty?
Yes, I was actually gonna say that, or maybe I need to type it into this chat. I will start from where?
Okay,
let me start from
you've given them too much information. They can find it from the website. They should do so. They are researchers. They have to.
Let me be nice to them.
You want to be nice to them anyway. I am not nice anyway, but that is the point.
In electrical, you have a faculty officer. Her name is Melody Engelbrecht, right? She's on the temporary basis and a contract. Actually, we just extended her contract till the end of June. we still have to appoint a new person who will be taking over. If we are not getting somebody sooner, I will take it back, because I was looking after that school for a couple of 5 years or so. So till we get a replacement, then we will let the school know who will be taking over. So currently is Melody Engelbrecht, who has been such an amazing person to be assisting the School of IE. The next one is School of Mining. Her name is Andile. What is Andile's surname? Jason. Do I just forget my colleagues just like that? But let me just check Andile's surname. Andile Setole, right?
Andile Setole.
Yeah, Andile Setole, she looks after mining. When I say a faculty officer, an FO, she looks after undergrad and postgrad. So guys, you must know that these are faculty officers. They're not only looking after postgrad, they're actually looking at the entire students in that particular school. So bear in mind when you send your submission, when you send your queries, they won't be answered that fast. So, but we are all trying to actually get to the turnaround point that your queries are being addressed, all right? And then the third one is, what is her name? Dudukani. Dudukani looks after ChemMed, chemical and metallurgy, undergrad to postgrad. And then currently we are actually having Mia. Mia is mechanical, industrial and aero. Temporarily, it's Mamang Ngadiming. Mamang is one of the senior faculty officers here. We will be appointing as well a new person there in that post soon. So the school is still being taken care of by Mamang. And then we have civil. Civil is being looked after by Melanie van Veek, so who looks under undergrad and postgrad. And then we have Amelda van Vieren, who looks after architecture, meaning urban and regional planning and architecture, including all the MSCs in there, or postgraduate degrees in there. And then the last one, we have construction, who is being looked after by Ria Stingman. So those are your FOs, and that's how we are structured. We have two seniors, like I said, it's my mom and myself, Charlotte, and we have a registrar who is Yasmin Stoffbeck. And obviously we have a receptionist, we have Atika Hussein, and we have an admin, Janice Wilson. So basically this is who we are.
Thank you so much. Just a couple of announcements. I know we are 3 minutes, but let me just take this 2 minutes to do this. First of all, I must say that we have set up your Turnitin for all the schools. It says there, if you are not assigned your school, please, if you are on the ADU support site or you have Uluwazi, you should have that. You should be able to put yourself on it. Or if you cannot, drop me an email and then I would work it for you. I'll put you there. If you cannot access our ADU postgraduate support sites too, please just drop me an email and I'll make sure that I add you. And also, I must also say that we have I've set up what we call a community of practice for honors, masters, and PhD, which I would launch soon. I'm just gonna get the final registration data from SIMS, and then I would allocate you on this. What the community of practice is to do is to serve as some form of idea factory, where it's a virtual platform where you can go there and engage with your peers. And secondly, this year also, I'm trying to bring in some of the people that can help with statistical stuff, statistical tools. We have some of the former alumni of the faculty who can also provide or assist with editing and all that at a fee. So we'll share all these things with you. But I also want to say that from next week, we'll be having our webinars every fortnight, that is every 2 weeks. But next week, we will be having the webinar on a Wednesday, not a Thursday. A lot of people have requested for a Wednesday at this time. So it will be from 17 00 to 18:30. And I think we have Professor Kola E. Jason from the Construction Economics Management, who will be talking about setting the tone for your research and your research career, getting the basics right. He has over 20 to 25 years of collective experience that he would be sharing with us. I will be sending the things around. Check your student emails. I would use your student emails all the time. And please welcome people to attend this webinars. These webinars help you. We try to help you make sure that it becomes easy for you to be able to have a great and an enriching experience. So I welcome you and I want to thank you all for coming. I also want to recognize my colleague Mahlati for taking time off to join us and for also be at the background answering some of the questions and also responding to emails. And also want to thank Charlotte and the team for the wonderful work done. And also want to thank you for spending your afternoon with us. We hope that we will see you next week, Wednesday, where we'll be delving deep into some of these things. I want to tell you that the success of this program will be your success. A lot of people through this program have gotten funding where they are basically on their way to abroad because we brought speakers here, and after that they were able to do their things and they got links with them. So we are trying to give you the best. We hope that this faculty will become one of the best. If a university is not doing well, you can trace it by looking at the Faculty of Engineering and the kind of people that they are producing out there. And I believe that this one going forward, we'll be able to leverage the knowledge that we have and to be able to collectively help push Africa together, help push the world together so that we can challenge and then have robust scholarly engagement. On this note, I want to thank you all for coming. If you have any questions, just drop me an email and I'll make sure that I get the questions and then we can have your questions answered. On this note, I declare this particular, and let me be a politician today and say with the powers vested in me, I declare this webinar adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.